Mother's Day has a strange way of exaggerating things. Gratitude feels louder. Resentment too. 40 of us were gathered in my sister Lydia's rented banquet room above a small Italian restaurant. Someone had taped pink paper carnations to the walls. The tables were too close together, and every chair scraped loudly against the tile. I had almost skipped it. For the last few years, family gatherings had developed a quiet tension around me. Conversations paused when I approached. Questions about my plans or next steps were asked with the careful tone people use when they're not sure if someone has already fallen too far. My daughter, Melissa, arrived late. She wore a bright dress and carried a white envelope the way someone carries a prop. I remember noticing how confident she looked, almost theatrical. After dessert plates were cleared, she stood up and tapped her glass. "I just want to share something for Mother's Day," she said. There was the expected laughter and applause. Melissa pulled several stapled pages from the envelope and raised them slightly so the nearest tables could see. "I've prepared something honest," she continued, smiling. "A little accounting." Someone chuckled. She looked directly at me. "I call it the cost of caring for someone useless." The room reacted in layers. First confusion. Then a few awkward laughs that lingered too long. She began reading. 20 years of emotional labor, she said, glancing down at the page. Unpaid. Another pause. Financial instability passed down to the next generation. A cousin at the far table stopped smiling. Then she read the number. $500,000. The way she said it suggested this was clever. Cathartic. A bold moment of truth. "I think families should be honest," she continued. "Some people take and take. Someone has to name the cost." No one interrupted her. But I noticed small movements around the room, a chair shifting, someone lowering their glass, Lydia staring at the tablecloth. Melissa finished and set the pages down in front of me. A few relatives clapped uncertainly. I didn't speak right away. Humiliation is an odd sensation when it happens publicly. It's less like a wound and more like being placed under a light you didn't agree to stand under. Melissa waited for something, an argument, maybe. Instead, I reached down beside my chair and lifted the brown file folder I had brought with me. I placed it on the table next to her papers. The folder was thicker. I slid it gently toward the center of the table. "Since we're sharing records," I said. That was all. Melissa frowned slightly, as if I'd misunderstood the assignment. "What's that supposed to be?" she asked. "Just documentation." I stood up, thanked Lydia for organizing the lunch, and stepped outside to get some air. No one opened the folder while I was there. But they did later. Around 9 that night my phone began vibrating on the kitchen counter. Then again. Then again. I didn't answer the first calls. Eventually curiosity won. My cousin Daniel spoke first. "Is all that real?" Inside the folder were copies. Years of them, bank transfer confirmations, legal documents, co-signed loans, medical insurance payments from a decade earlier when Melissa didn't have coverage during her pregnancy. I hadn't hidden these things deliberately. I had simply never announced them. Families often prefer stories over records. One document seemed to be circulating among everyone. 3 years earlier Melissa's business had collapsed suddenly. Creditors were already preparing legal action. To keep her company from dissolving, and to prevent bankruptcy from reaching her personally, I had transferred nearly all of my retirement savings into a stabilization account. The agreement had my name on every page. Melissa had insisted at the time it was temporary. It never came back. Another document showed the mortgage payment I quietly covered for 8 months when she and her husband were separating. Another showed tax penalties I settled when her accountant disappeared mid-audit. None of them were dramatic acts. They were simply done. By morning, the family group chat had turned into something between a courtroom and a therapy session. Some relatives were angry with Melissa. Others were angry with themselves for laughing the day before. Melissa responded only once. "This is manipulation," she wrote. But paperwork has a strange personality. It doesn't argue, it just sits there until someone reads it. Around noon, Lydia invited everyone back to her house for leftover food. I almost didn't go. But avoidance can look too much like shame. When I arrived, the house felt quieter than the restaurant had been. Conversations stopped when I entered, but the silence carried a different texture now. Not pity, something more careful. Melissa stayed near the back patio. She spoke to no one directly. No one forced the issue. In the middle of that strange, suspended afternoon, my niece Hannah wandered into the dining room with a pencil and a sheet of notebook paper. She's 13. At that age, children often observe adults with unsettling clarity. She walked straight up to me. "I made something," she said. She placed the paper on the table. At the top she had written, "Bill." Below that were several lines. "Teaching me how to ride my bike. Helping with science fair volcano. Letting me call you when I couldn't sleep at summer camp." Each line had a dollar amount next to it. $100, $250. At the bottom she had added them together. The total came to $2,350. Underneath the number she wrote in big block letters. Pi DN fell. Then she shrugged. "Because that's what people write when someone already gave you enough." The room was very quiet. No applause. No speeches. Just the soft sound of Lydia exhaling near the window. Melissa stared at the paper longer than anyone else. She didn't apologize. Not that day. Families rarely resolve themselves on schedule. But something had shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough that when I left later that evening, people looked at me differently than they had 24 hours earlier. Less like a burden. More like someone whose story they had finally bothered to read.